Welcome to Small Town Snarks. I'm Joel.
And I'm Miranda. Let's get snarky. How are you doing today, Joel?
I am just swell, Miranda. We've got a big show coming up soon, and probably
We
may have
do.
already started by the time this is released. It definitely probably will be.
Yeah.
Have already happened, but
We've
there's a
spent
show coming up.
the whole day together.
We have.
You were painting in my garage this morning.
I was, and now we're getting ready to rehearse and do some
Yeah.
do a little show, do a little ditty. So.
And it's 27 degrees outside,
Uh-huh.
but my app said it feels like 5.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
not
we were
good.
painting in that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And there's also, an impeding potential snowstorm, which
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
when
Gotta
people
love
are
it.
listening to this, it'll either have been a giant snowstorm or
Or
no
nothing.
snow at all. So so yeah, we're just we're prepping, we're getting ready. The
Cool.
clock is ticking.
I'm
3 weeks.
excited.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited.
Me too.
For those of you listening who are wondering, when did they record this? We are in the thick of Pippin right now.
Thick of Pippin.
The-
Yes, very much so in the thick
The
of Pippin. Yes,
Thick with
yes.
2 C's.
Yes.
Pippin.
Yeah, I just we reached that point in the process where like things all start happening at the same time, and we'll talk about this with our other shows, but like we're getting to that point where
You gotta
everything
rally.
has to rally and be lined up and ready to go, and we're gonna be doing a stumble through, and
Yeah.
we're gonna see where we're at and keep running from there. And
So tonight you'll either be like really happy or very worried, and
yeah,
I'm excited to see
I
which one it
try
is.
I try to avoid the worried feeling. It's a okay, what we need to work on mindset versus
Fair enough.
yeah, because
enough.
I panic easily, and I'm also just a negative thinker to begin with. So we're gonna stay optimistic regardless of what happens. There's an audience coming to see Pippin in a couple weeks, and they're
Yeah.
gonna get a great show.
And
because
it
they
needs to be
always
ready.
do.
So
They always do.
it will be.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Well, before we get into the crap storm that was my senior year of high
Yeah.
school,
Uh-huh.
I did have a question for you to kind of wrap up your high school experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Which was, did you picture yourself doing theater outside of high school? And if so, to what capacity?
So I would be lying if I said when I left high school that I thought I would never do theater again, because that was not at all possibly going to be the case. When I left high school, I mean, I had mentioned that experience at the end of Footloose where I was like, you know what, I'm closing the doors, I'm closing out this chapter of my
Right.
theater experience. I don't think I knew what theater was going to be beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
I was still seeing a lot of shows, and I really loved just the energy of live theater, but I didn't know what the next opportunity was going to be. So I don't necessarily know if I probably wouldn't have been able to predict that I'd be participating in theater in the capacity that I am currently
Right.
after graduating. But, I think my hope was, I was going off to college, and I would hopefully have some opportunities there to participate in some shows and really get to expand on kind of that aspect of it and learn new things in theater, which I did. College theater is so funny, and I mean, we can talk about this more because I know there's a big transition in your life when you decided to start the company and what that process looked like during your college experience. But I know from my standpoint, like being at college, college theater is a very interesting character in itself. The process and the expectations are very different, and taking on that opportunity and like seeing what shows are out there and what that experience was kind of an eye-opening opportunity for me. I was not going to school for theater. I had at one point thought I'd be a theater minor. That didn't really pan out, but I definitely sought out those opportunities to continue working and creating theater as much as they opened up and were available for me. So, but yeah, I never would have imagined in 1,000 years, senior year of high school, that this is where I would be at with theater.
Right.
At all. And I'm not complaining about it at all because, I think what I found with this entire process and with this company and, creating theater at my age, it's not only an outlet, but it's just a really great, valuable opportunity for storytelling and being creative outside of your traditional work atmosphere and your traditional day-to-day. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great group of people, and it's a really good experience to have and good outlet to have, an activity. And I'd encourage it, everybody. Encourage theater and those activities to everybody. But yeah, to simply answer your question, no, I never would have anticipated. But I did know that there was going to be, my theater story was not ending after high school. So yeah.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I guess if we want to go from there into your time post my departure from high school, I just have to say, and I can share some more specific things, but like I made a dedicated effort to make sure that I would come back and see the shows in the consecutive years. Now, granted, as the years kind of came along, things kind of waned out a little bit.
Well, once you get to the point where you don't know anyone there,
yes,
it's like, okay, maybe I'm not going to go back.
For sure, yeah. I do remember this year very specifically, and I'll share my thoughts on those individual shows, but like I remember, the first play, coming back to see the fall play and experiencing that and being back in that space, and it was a little bit of an adjustment. It was like, okay, this is what this is now, and to see everything kind of continuing on and the shows being presented was such an exciting experience. But can you remind me and tell everybody what your senior year play was that fall?
It was 2 1-acts. So Charlie Brown Christmas and the best Christmas pageant ever. Mm-hmm. And I directed Charlie Brown Christmas. And one of the things that was interesting, and I know you've experienced this when you were directing and stage managing for the high school as well.
Yeah.
I didn't get any say in the casting. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely nothing. So that was just a side of the process that I never got to experience, which we'll talk about what my first actual experience with that was, which was Grease, and kind of what I was prepared for and what I was not prepared for.
Sure.
But that was just an interesting aspect. We weren't involved in that at all. Some of my favorite memories, so Charlie Brown Christmas, my brother, and I don't think we were dating at the time, but Dakota, who's now my husband, were both in this show. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of fun. And we got to do a skating scene, which was a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it was a pretty simple show. I think it was a good second directing experience for me. Mm-hmm. And my mom did all the costumes, so they were exactly the way I wanted them, and they looked great. I remember I would leave, I had piano class first period, and I would just leave and go paint Christmas trees, Charlie Brown Christmas trees in the theater. No one cared. So that was interesting. But yeah, and some of the decisions for the casting were interesting as well. One of the things that our drama teacher did that was a little surprising was they put the tallest person as Snoopy, which I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know if that was an intentional statement or just an interesting choice. But yeah, overall, that one was definitely a good time. Best Christmas pageant ever was interesting because I had a similar experience to you as book voice, where my character was on the alcove of the stage the entire time. Not only was I on the alcove, I was in a hospital bed, and my leg was propped up in a cast, and I had to have people push me out onto the stage, which luckily they didn't push me off the stage. This is a pretty tight fit, not gonna lie. It was pretty tight.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was out there. I wasn't out there the whole show. They did get me off of the stage at some point, which I was grateful for.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that was kind of, I don't know. It was a weird experience just laying there. I mean, you can't see what's happening. And you're just saying your lines, and I'm just, staring at the ceiling. I still have the cast. I had everyone in the cast sign it. So I need to get a shadow box and, put it up.
Oh, for sure.
I still have that, which is really special to me. But overall, the fall, pretty calm. No real craziness.
Yeah.
I will say this is definitely the year, after you left, the crap hit the fan in ways that I was not anticipating. And I feel as if I should preface this with, I don't believe the drama teacher we had was a bad person or is a bad person. I do think they made some decisions that were harmful. But I don't believe they're a bad person. I don't know that they were meant to be a teacher, and I think they would agree with that. But if you're listening, drama teacher, happy to have this discussion with you or have you on the podcast anytime to get your side of the story. But yes, I think her and I almost developed what felt like a sibling type of relationship rather than a teacher-student relationship. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of fighting, and this really started with High School Musical, which so there's an intro to theater class, and in this intro to theater class there's also an advanced acting class which had like 5 of us in it. And 4 of us wanted to do High School Musical, and Dakota, who I can name drop because he's my husband, he doesn't care, he wanted to do a play. So we ended up doing High School Musical and a play, 2 full-length productions with this intro to theater class, which mainly consisted of freshmen. And you know this, that was unheard of. We never did 2 full-length productions with a drama class, let alone a musical. That never happened.
Right.
So High School Musical started. We did get to do kind of that casting process by ourselves, which was interesting. Everyone was really excited about it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a full circle moment for me because when we talked about daycare, like High School Musical they were starting to advertise it during that time.
Yeah.
So my memory is that the album actually came out before the movie. So people were listening to the album at daycare and getting really hyped about this movie that was coming out. So this movie had been in my life for a long time. And it was really exciting to get to experience this with the younger students and also trying to direct something like actually by myself. So we had help, but I kind of was the ringleader there. And then I had a couple really great like co-directors that helped make this happen.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big things that happened here was there was I believe it was I think it was a holiday, but it was like a random holiday, like, I don't know, not like Christmas, but it was like one of those random holidays where you have off school.
Okay.
And at the time, I was actually working at Taco Bell on the weekends. And I had texted our drama teacher, and I said, hey, we really need an extra rehearsal because the show was coming up, and we couldn't afford this day off. And I was like, we really need an extra rehearsal. Would you be able to let us in the school so we could have this rehearsal?
Yeah.
And I didn't hear anything from them. Now, you know from your experience in high school, this was almost never an issue. Like, we would come in all the time to, like, work on the set or do rehearsals or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. I haven't heard from her. I'm assuming that it's going to be fine. Well, then I told the students that we're planning on having this rehearsal on this day. And I got home from work one day. My mom was sitting in the living room, and she was like, I need to see your phone. I was like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, let me see your phone. So, okay. So I hand her my phone, and I was like, what's going on? And she said, just hold on a second. And she had called the drama teacher and was having a conversation with her, and then she hung up, and she told me that the drama teacher found out I told the students, which I didn't think was a secret, that we were having a rehearsal. And she said that she had texted me back, no, you can't have the rehearsal. But I never received that text message. And because she insisted that she had texted me back, she accused me of maliciously planning a rehearsal behind her back, which, for all intents and purposes, is like planning to do homework outside of school hours.
Yes.
But she was very, very upset about this. And when my mom looked at my phone, she didn't see the text message either. So that's what she told the drama teacher. And the drama teacher was like, oh, well, she must have deleted it. My mom was like, no, like, that's not my kid. I don't know why you're reacting this way. So she was so angry, like, unbelievably angry about this. And I couldn't understand why, because we had been conditioned our whole time in high school. You do whatever it takes to get the show on.
I would still say that's still our motto to this day.
Yes.
Yeah, making
that's
sure things happen.
How we learned how to do that. We didn't have a ton of support in high school. It was the leaders of the drama department were making the show happen. Without the students, the show would not have happened.
Yeah.
So I was totally caught off guard and was like, even if I did do this behind her back, which wasn't my intention, why does she care? This has never been an issue.
Yeah.
So I told the students, I was like, you know what? We're going to have rehearsal at my house. We can't have it at the school. We'll do it in my basement. Everyone showed up. Every single student. And this was a holiday. They didn't have to come. It wasn't even at the school, and they all showed up. And I think that if you look at Grease, this was definitely the trajectory towards Grease.
Yeah.
The fact that all of these kids who, for all intensive purposes, shouldn't have cared that much. They were freshmen. They were in an intro to theater class. They were just trying to get their art credit.
Yeah.
They had the day off school, yet they all cared enough to come do this rehearsal.
Right.
Which meant so much. And it still does.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, this was the beginning and the end of my relationship with our drama teacher. And we had auditions for Hairspray coming up, and this was near the end of High School Musical. So Hairspray was my senior year musical. And I was walking through the hallway, and I heard her in the drama room screaming at our music director about how I was a terrible person and I didn't deserve any chance at any role because I went behind her back, and like just screaming. Like I could hear it from the hallway, and I was like, why am I even auditioning? Like, why am I bothering with this? So that was just like, I've always been this type of person, and I think I've acquired these skills as I've gone on, but you know this about me. If I have a conflict with someone, especially if it's someone I care about, I'm like, let's talk this through.
Sure.
Let's get it out in the open so we can all move on. And to hear like a grown adult screaming about a child to another grown adult, I was like, what? Why? Like, why would you choose that route? And I felt betrayed too, because I was one of the less than 10 people who worked their butts off for this department. I mean, seriously, like, put everything into this.
Yeah.
You know, covered anyone's butt when they needed it. Like, you know, sometimes our drama teacher didn't have the props they needed. Like, what would we do? We would go out to Goodwill and get them. Like, that's what we did. So I felt this sense of betrayal as well. And luckily, the music director was kind of just like, hey, this is an overreaction. We know this person. I'm sure she didn't mean to do what you're saying that she did. Right. So that really helped. But it was crazy. And that's where I talk about, like, the sibling type relationship. It was almost like a level of pettiness that I wasn't prepared for or expecting. And yeah, so that was a lot. Luckily, High School Musical ended up being a good experience. My brother was one of the main characters, and I mean, he was one of the more solid singers, I would say, at the high school, and he finally got a chance to have some songs, so that was a really great experience. I got to do all the choreo, which was a ton of fun. We actually had a great turnout for the show.
That's great.
And me and the co-directors, we ended up being backstage for the entire show. I never actually saw the show. There's a recording of it. But we ran all the scene changes because we were just like, these kids need to focus on what they're doing, and we will do all the scene changes.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We made it happen. One of the choreo tricks I did, I use myself as an example because I did this in cheerleading, and it's kind of like a assisted backflip thing.
Yeah.
But I always tell people when I do it in my shows now, I'm like, keep your head back. And I show them there's a scar on my knee, and it's from this show. Mm-hmm. So when I did this trick with people, the person who was holding my leg didn't keep their head back. Mm-hmm. And when I went to flip, their braces went into my knee.
Oh, no.
So it was a painful experience for both of us.
Theater is very much so a contact sport.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that example that I always use came from this show. Mm-hmm. That's why you keep your head back. Otherwise, braces straight to the knee. Yes. So, yeah, that was the gist of High School Musical, and I'll get into Hairspray in a minute, but I just kind of want to, I know you've heard these stories before, but wanted to give you an opportunity to chime in with any, thoughts or questions you have.
So we've had these discussions a lot about your experience in your senior year and kind of those shows and how it kind of ignited your passion and interest and taught you how to be very versatile and, taking control of the situations that you need to be and that you can be in control and to make sure that the shows happen. Do you believe, and I know we can discuss this more as we go through more of these episodes, but do you believe, or do you think some of these skills are things that you would only have been able to pick up in these types of experiences, or do you think that they are, how do you think that those experiences themselves really kind of brought you to where you are now? And do you think that those opportunities would have been presented elsewhere? Or do you feel like it's really like I'm learning, I'm being forced in this situation to figure out whatever I need to figure out, and this is the way that it goes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do believe that it would have taken me a lot longer to get where I am and where the company is had I not had these experiences. Mm-hmm. The good, the bad, and the ugly of all of it forced me to grow up. It's almost like when you'll see kids who experience trauma or whatever when they're younger, and they're forced to mature faster because of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they end up being really successful because they grew up before everyone else. Sure. And it's not necessarily the way you want things to happen, but it's how they are. And I do believe these experiences forced me to become independent and take accountability for these different aspects of production that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. When I got to college, it was a real shock to the system because we didn't have that freedom that I had in high school. Yeah. All of a sudden, all these people wanted control of these different areas of the production. And I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. I'm used to doing all these different things. And now it's I have to work my way up to be able to get an experience in one area. Yeah. It was totally different. And I do believe there was a lot about our high school experience, my high school experience, that shouldn't have happened. But whenever we go through hard times with the company, something you like to say is we've dealt with bigger, badder, and worse.
Oh, yes.
And
yes, 100%.
This is by no means, my high school experience was not the worst that I've dealt with. But
we'll get there.
We will.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. But it prepped me for dealing with the bigger, the badder, and the worst. Yeah. And especially when when we started doing this, we were very young. We're still very young to be running a theater company. Normally people are much older when they start a theater company. People see that and they will take advantage. And I feel because we had these experiences, we were very resilient to that.
Absolutely.
And also, we were very quick to see through the BS.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just oh, you're fake. Oh, you're going to take advantage of me. Okay. And sometimes we mess up, but these experiences helped me create skills to protect myself moving forward. So I do definitely think that it is part of the reason that STS has been successful. For sure.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that piece of it, because I feel like I made the comment that theater is a contact sport, but theater is also a very like you can't just, they make those comments about people like phoning in their performances or like doing whatever,
right.
but there's this like sense of ownership over whatever you do when you're in or working in theater that
right.
like, you want to give 100% because you want that like satisfaction or that appreciation from the audience and from the people that you're working with and all of that. And I think nothing rings truer. I know from my perspective, and I think through our conversations, we've discovered that you feel the same way, that like our high school experience, we had such ownership over what we were presenting.
Right.
And honestly, we still talk about this to this day, but like an ownership and feeling of attachment to that program and for those opportunities, because
yep.
Through the good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, we
right.
were in a position where we did learn so much. It was almost a trial by fire situation of 100%. Like trying to make sure that we were learning and gaining all of those experiences and trying to make sure that things kept running. And we're, I still to this day, I'm always optimistic and always happy to hear when things are going super well for, high school theaters and for these early opportunities for students and younger people
right.
to participate in theater. And that just rings true to, my feelings, and I know your feelings as well towards the work that we had to do in high school. So, with that High School Musical experience, it was almost like a double-edged sword from that standpoint of like, it's something you really wanted to do and it taught you a lot, but there was a lot of hardships with it. But with those hardships came these opportunities and learning experiences to move forward.
And it made me a better leader. Mm-hmm. I really believe that, because at the end of the day with our drama teacher, I was looking to her to be my mentor, and I wanted her approval so bad. Mm-hmm. And I've carried that with me moving forward, understanding that when I'm directing a show or when people know I own this company or whatever the case is, I know the importance of telling people, like, you're doing a great job, or I'm really proud of you, or whatever. And there are times when, like, I mess up, or I have to be like, oh, I have been in my own world, and I haven't been giving enough compliments. And, like, it's an active thing that I have to do. But I know how much people crave that. Yeah. And that's part of it is, like, it takes 10 seconds to show someone you appreciate them. And I definitely think that's part of what... Well, I know that's part of what I've heard sets STS apart. Absolutely. From other companies. And, like, there are other companies that do this well as well. But, like, there are some companies that don't get it. And we came from a spot where we were fighting for everything we had, like, every show. And, I came from a place where I was craving leadership. And those things helped us establish this framework for a compassionate and loving company. Absolutely. And when you look at, I used this example before, but our sound operator started operating sound for us when they were 14. Why? Because they showed an interest and because they were great at it. Absolutely. What other company is going to let a 14-year-old operate their soundboard for a main stage? Probably no one. Exactly. But we know from our experience, these people, if they have the passion, they have the drive, they're 100% capable because we've done it. Yes. So that definitely made all the difference, and it's definitely shaped what our company is, who we are, and what we value. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's... There's a lot that came out of those high school years, and I think we have one last main stage show to talk about from your experience. Which and then we have a cabaret. Oh yes, we do have a cabaret. A cabaret from hell. I do want to talk about your experience with Hairspray. Yeah. I could just say I remember coming to see Hairspray and like. I was aware that there were some drama things going on. I mean, you were very good about keeping me in the loop as to what was going on just because I personally was curious. But, right.
it was one of those moments, more than what I had experienced going back to see the play in the fall, but going to see Hairspray, I just remember being in that space and like being so genuinely like proud, but also like super excited to see like the energy and seeing how, you know, great the program was doing, and seeing so many people participating and excited to be, you know, telling the story. And it's such a powerful story to tell, and I just felt like there were so many like right pieces put together, which I really, really loved. And I remember just leaving that night just being very like overwhelmed with like, okay, things are going super well, and it's continuing on, and you know, great things are happening. But I know that there was a lot going on behind the scenes to get to that point. But
man,
yeah.
So this show honestly was a blast. It was a great show to end high school with.
Yeah.
We had a lot of sound problems, which was a common theme for our high school experience. Opening night, it was my microphone. And what was interesting, looking back on it, having the experience I have with productions now, I don't understand why they didn't catch it. Because in my character, I had to do the opening speech, like the house speech.
Yeah, and who were you, by the way?
Amber Von Tussle.
Amber Von Tussle. Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
Yes, yeah. I was. And I had a wig almost taller than me. And it was a lot of fun. But so I was supposed to do the opening speech, and I was supposed to do it from out in the hallway. And my microphone just, like, they weren't picking up anything. So they were like, oh, just go in front of the audience and do your speech. And at the time, I was like, oh, okay. Now, the show hadn't started. Why did they not realize, oh, we need to fix her mic? I don't know. But my mic didn't work for Act 1 that show. But again, common theme, unfortunately.
Yes. Technology is hard sometimes.
Yes. But also, we've gotten very good at troubleshooting. And
oh, for sure. Absolutely.
If someone's mic isn't working before the show, it's not going to work during the show.
No, it never does. It never does.
It never does.
It never does.
But some interesting, like, behind-the-scenes stuff. We had video of the TV show playing during the show. And my friend recorded the video. But I remember the orchestra stayed after school with us, and we would film this dance over and over and over again and get a bunch of different camera angles before our tech rehearsal. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, like, this pit is so dedicated to stay with us and to play this song over and over again so we could get it right. It was a lot. It was a lot of work. And that was a classic thing, too, is our drama teacher or someone else had this idea to do this, and they just kind of casually mentioned, oh, can you throw this together, not realizing, like, how much work it was going to be. So it was hours of work, but it turned out to be really cool. And there were some other things that were just kind of strange. I remember it was the day before we opened, and right before I Know Where I've Been, the iconic number, there's, like, this little scene that happens. And our drama teacher stopped the run-through to, like, explain, like, oh, would you like to use a chair? You can use this chair. Would you like to sit on the chair? Would you like to stand behind the chair? And spent, like, 30 minutes talking about chair options. And I was like, we have to run this show.
Right.
But also, what's funny to me is I realized that I kind of got pigeonholed in these musicals in certain roles because we talked about Footloose, like, you would have these amazing songs like I Need a Hero, whatever, and then my song was Can You Find It in Your Heart after my husband tries to slap our daughter. For Hairspray, there's this beautiful Black anthem about struggle and how to overcome it, and then me, this little white girl, comes out and starts singing about cooties. And I was like, this is so chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how the show is written, but thinking back on it, I was like, wow, those were just my things, I guess. Like, you get these really awesome numbers, and then I come out and do something weird. But our friend
it was
Jacob,
iconic, though.
yeah,
It was iconic. I mean, just the whole show was just so iconic.
our friend Jacob Bartholow always said that Cooties was his favorite number, and I will take that with me and call that a win. But yeah, it's just of course I had to follow that. Are you kidding me?
Of
Like,
course.
come on. And of course the person playing what is the character's name?
Oh, Motormouth.
Motormouth.
Maybelle.
Was a phenomenal singer singing this ballad, and then I come out with my little character voice and singing about how another character is fat. Like, seriously? But anyhow, it was still a good time.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Leave it to my mom to make me some custom costumes, so that was a blast.
Worked out in your favor there.
Yeah, I remember it was funny because, well, it did, because my character was supposed to be on a TV show.
Yeah.
So it worked out well, but some of the other parents were like, why doesn't my daughter get 5 custom costumes? And my mom was just like, well, your daughter's character isn't on a TV show. They're supposed to be, like, poor, living in the streets of Baltimore.
Yeah.
But
So it makes sense, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's one of the privileges of your parents putting in a crap ton of hours.
Support, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just, like I said, I look back so fondly on that year of shows, and that one in particular, I'm like, you know, after the series of shows that we did, seeing you all follow up with Hairspray, and like to see the amount of activity and the amount of interest in the program at that time,
Yeah.
was just, it was remarkable. It was really, really remarkable. And those moments you mentioned, I mean, I Know Where I've Been was astounding. It was so good, so good. And I just was so proud to see that show and to see how things were going.
Yeah. Yeah. That one was overall a pretty good experience. Shall we move on to this cabaret?
I would like nothing more than to talk about this cabaret. So to just, would you like me to kind of introduce?
I would love for you to introduce.
Yeah, so we didn't really talk about it with the previous years, but every school year would end with the annual cabaret, and this had been a practice and a production for years. Like, it predated my high school experience. Like, it had been going on for years. And cabaret was just you could audition. Anyone in the school could audition to perform whatever song they wanted to perform, and it was a good way to kind of wrap up the year. And usually the concert or the cabaret itself would end with a group number that was selected by the president of the Thespian Society. So I picked my song, and I think we did Time Warp, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it was always this big event. A lot of people really enjoyed it, and I came back for Hairspray, and I definitely was not going to miss cabaret. Freshman year of college was over. I was back in town, and not only was I there for cabaret, I was in the second row.
I remember.
Down center. Was so ready for this experience. And it was an experience, to say the least. I don't even know where to go from there. Would you like to share what song you sang, Miranda?
Yeah, so I did Letterbomb from American Idiot, which I had to get approval from by the principal.
Of course.
Because the song said bastards. So I had to change the word.
It's so funny to think about stuff like that all these years
Yeah.
later, like with the context of, what people are talking about these days and subject
I
matter.
know.
It just fascinates
And
me.
I remember she said, I was like, hey, the word bastard's in it. I'm going to change it to loser.
Uh-huh.
And then she was like, well, why do you want to do the song? I'm like, how am I supposed to answer that? Because I like it? Like, that's why. And then it got approved, but it was weird. So I had a live band for the song, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I had approval to use microphone for the song. And I did choreography. It was a bunch of different couples. And they all had some unique fight choreography during the number. So my microphone was out the whole time.
It sure was.
And I went back in the drama room. Or not the drama room, sorry. The dressing room. And was crying. Because, as you will.
Yeah.
And I remember... Well, I don't exactly remember this. I heard about it later, but my mom went up to the booth and was like, so you're going to let her do that again, right? To our drama teacher. They were like, yeah. So we got everyone to change back into their letter bomb costumes. And I was up in the booth getting my microphone fixed. And during this, another group had a microphone. They had a handheld microphone, 2 of them, and one went out, so they ended up sharing the mic. And I was like, oh boy, this is just a time.
Yep.
So they had to test my mic. And rather than testing it in the booth, they sent me up on the stage multiple times to test my microphone in front of an entire audience of people. And this happened, it felt like 5 times. I don't know how many times it actually was. I know it was a lot. And I remember at one point I was like, we've switched everything. It has to be the headset. And she kept saying, no, it's not the headset. And I was like, but we've switched everything else. It was the headset. Spoiler alert. So I kind of blocked this out, but picture, like, for everyone listening who's done a mic check, picture doing that mic check mid-show in front of the entire audience.
We're talking like 100 plus people. Like,
standing on the stage by yourself, doing a microphone check.
Yep.
And not only doing it once, but multiple times. It was a lot. I don't believe how that situation went down was fair to me. To send me up there to the wolves like that. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot. We eventually got it working, and I was able to do the number with the microphone. So that was nice.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And you have a story as an audience member of someone else who had an incident during the cabaret that I would love to hear about.
I mean, let me just, I'll just be very frank that, like, it's a lot to work through those types of shows, especially when you're working with people who haven't been been on stage in that type of capacity before, which, like, cabaret has a lot of those types of experiences. What I found, and I mean, watching the sound issues go on, I, of course, was very devastated because I know what that feeling is like, and I know what it's like to be preparing to perform and not have all of your ducks in a row and all of the pieces in place to give the performance that you dreamed about. And it's even more disappointing when it's your last time performing on the stage. I mean, this is like May. This is the very end of the year. You're getting ready to graduate. It's the end is in sight for your experience, and this is kind of like the final point to your end of your year. But yes, I remember those sound incidents. Some other things that I remember, unfortunately, there was someone performing who was on a stool that slipped and unfortunately just landed on the floor in the middle of their performance, which
their leg was broken too.
That's right, yes, their leg was broken, and I just in that moment felt so bad for that individual.
Let me clarify, it didn't break because they fell.
Right.
It was already broken. That's
broken.
Why they were on the stool.
Yeah, and it just, to see that happen for that person, that person's such a talent. I mean, everybody's such a talented individual on stage, but it was just so sad to see.
What made that so brutal that I'll bring up is they were on the floor, clearly very upset and in pain.
Rightfully so, yeah.
And the lights didn't go out, the curtain didn't shut, they were just there. It took what felt like an eternity for anything to happen for her to get help, and it was...
And as an audience member, my gosh. It was, the natural instinct was like, I want to do something, but it's like, how do you...
What do you do, go up on stage?
Right, exactly. Right. It's almost like that. Unfortunately, it's like the bystander effect where, like, you're there and you're just like, someone is going to do something. Like, this is live theater. This is a live presentation. Someone is watching this and is going to do something to help resolve the situation. And it, in hindsight, it may have only been for like 15, 20 seconds, but like it was enough time where it was like, okay, someone needs to either like close the curtain or turn the lights off or something. Go help this poor person who is experiencing this moment on stage right now.
It was horrible.
It was really, really upsetting in that moment.
So this was, I'll say, this is a cabaret from hell. Like, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we had a really fun group number at the end. We did When I Grow Up from Matilda.
Mm-hmm. Love that song.
And all the seniors were dressed like little kids at the beginning, and then they changed into graduation robes at the end, and it was super cute, and parents were crying, and it was great. Mm-hmm. But it was brutal in so many ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to reflect on when you tried to talk to our drama teacher afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I just generally, after that experience, really wanted to just check the temperature of the room and try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people in that show that I cared about, and genuinely, like, I was so excited to see them perform, and it was still great to see them all perform,
right.
See you perform, see just the entire theater department get to have that kind of moment. It was nice to see that, but of course afterwards I wanted to go back and just reflect and have that moment of time with our drama teacher, and I remember not being able to find them just after searching for a little bit, and they were in the ceramics room, and I just, in that moment, like, okay, the show had just ended. It definitely did not go as planned, and it was just very overwhelming, and I think thinking about your all's experience, thinking about their experience, thinking about everything going on, I'm like, I can't say that I've per se been there to the point where I'm like, I just can't face people because of everything that had gone on, but like, theater is one of those things where just, sometimes things happen, and fortunately you have to figure out, what's the next step, or figure out a way to make it happen. And
it was also a classic example of we needed them in that moment to be our leader. Mm-hmm. And not only could you not find them as an audience member, we didn't know where they were. Mm-hmm. So we were all kind of on our own processing.
Sure.
What was my last show of the high school, which was a dumpster fire. Mm-hmm. And it would have been useful to have our leader there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I think in that situation, it was such an unexpected surprise for the cabaret to go the way that it went. But then having that follow-up and having that discussion and realizing what was going on, it just... I felt for you all. I felt for them. I just felt for the situation as a whole. I'm like, it's not a way you want to go out on for a final show of the
100%,
year.
yeah.
But, fortunately you were able to perform your number. It did happen.
After five takes.
5 takes, it did happen. I do remember that group number, and I remember seeing everybody, having that moment. I had remembered from the year prior of us performing that group number of, like, what that felt like. And
yeah, and that was a good moment.
I was supposed to say, what did that feel like for you to, like, have that final moment on stage? Was it, was it reflective? Do you remember?
I do. Honestly, for me, I was definitely really emotional at the end of Hairspray. Mm-hmm. And I think for the end of the group number, I was definitely having a moment of, thank God this cabaret is almost over. Mm-hmm. Because it was just a journey. Mm-hmm. But also, what I love about how I had structured that group number, it was really about the seniors. Mm-hmm. And it was about our journey. And I'm glad that we all had that moment together.
Right.
Because so much of our experience had been, we had to rely on each other to get through things.
Yeah.
And to have that moment on stage together and just kind of, it was almost cathartic, like just processing everything. Absolutely. And being like, okay, we're moving on from this now. Mm-hmm. That was definitely special. And I think that was part of it for me for a long time, was with my senior year struggling to realize, like, as difficult as this year has been, it's not, it doesn't have to be about my drama teacher. It doesn't have to be about the struggles I've had with them. It can just be about my experience with these other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what we did together. And that's how I've tried to remember it. And as we start talking about Grease, we'll kind of see that evolution there. But I didn't want those negative experiences that I had with that particular person to skew my view of what my theater experience was in high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's impossible for it not to. Like, it definitely does sometimes. And we still catch ourselves talking about, like, crazy things that, for the record, we can't even share everything on this podcast because we do care about this person. And we do want to protect their reputation to some extent. But there were a lot of things that we went through that we shouldn't have, but they are how we became the people we are, and I'm pretty happy with the people we are. So I am grateful for that, and I do think, regardless of what happened, and I've since made amends with this person, like, to the best of my ability, and I think to the best of their ability as well, but, you know, I'll give them credit where credit is due. Like, what they did, right or wrong, contributed to our success.
Absolutely.
I think in a positive way. We know how to fight for ourselves. We've dealt with BS before. We'll deal with BS in the future, and that's how it works. But we're pretty strong. And the cabaret, that's one of the perfect examples of that. And we've carried this idea forever, which is we won't set up our people to fail. That's one of my biggest mottos is I won't push you on stage to fail. And part of that is I've been put on stage in a position where I was going to fail. And people had the knowledge to believe that I was likely to fail, and they didn't do things to stop it. When I was a cheerleader, that happened. I was put in positions where people knew I was likely to fail, and they kept me there. This part of moving forward and part of our values has become we set people up for success.
Absolutely.
So if you can't hit that high note, I'm not going to have you try to hit the high note because I know you're not going to be able to hit it. And my job is to make you look good. At the end of the day, my job is to always make you look good. So, yeah, I'm proud of being able to get through those experiences. I'm proud that you were able to get through those experiences. And I'm really glad that we were able to turn some of those into something that has become really positive.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing you say that because I feel like in all of our time that we have these conversations, we don't really get to that point of the conversation where we're like reflecting on, you know, this is where we're at, this is what we've been through, and this is where it got us to.
We just get to the angry, frustrated point.
Right. And it's stuff that sometimes just pops up in the back of our mind. Like, can you believe that happened? I mean, it was over 10 years ago now, but, like, just thinking about it, it's just...
And it is unreal. Like, some of it is unreal.
Yeah.
But it's part of our story.
And I, you know, with all of the negative things, I feel like from my perspective, I've been through a lot in the last 10 years. I know you've changed a lot over the last several years as well, that, like... I've strived to not hold animosity or frustration to those things because, you know, we're all human. We all have things that are going on. We all have different things in our lives. And looking at it, every time we discuss it or every time that things come up where we're, like, processing what we went through or, you know, where we're at currently, I feel like we're getting to the point, or I at least get to the point, and I'm sure you feel similarly, that, like, through a different lens or through a different experience, you know, it's either something that we've been able to use to our advantage or it's something that we're coming to terms and understanding through those experiences, which has been kind of cathartic for me from my standpoint of, like, you know, I've lived a life of learning and I've gotten to the point where I'm at the age that I'm at and I know where those experiences have gotten me and what I can do to continue to make sure that I'm giving a positive opportunity and experience for others and build on those experiences.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things and something I've tried to do a lot because we'll get into this, but we've dealt with other very difficult people moving forward, is you can forgive, but you don't have to forget.
Right.
And, like, part of who I've become, and an example of this is in Hairspray, Good Morning Baltimore, our drama teacher didn't communicate with our choreographer that they wanted teachers in the featured parts in that song. So our choreographer put freshmen in there. So they had special parts. And our drama teacher took those parts away from them. And I told her one-on-one, I was like, I don't believe that was fair and that was okay. And she got really upset with me. And she was like, well, it's just one line. It doesn't matter. And I said, you don't understand. When you're in the ensemble and you get a line, it matters. And I've always had this big sense of what's fair and what's just. And sometimes to my detriment, I can't shut up about it. And when I see something that's not fair, I'm like, I'm going to speak up about it. And sometimes it makes people upset. And it made her upset a lot senior year when I was advocating for people. But that's the thing. Like, I forgive her. I'm not going to forget that she did things that I believe were wrong. But I don't think it was malicious intent. But I also believe that some of it was pretty neglectful.
Yeah, we've like I always like to say, we've definitely seen bigger, badder, worse situations.
We sure have.
And I mean,
I can't wait to get there.
Yes, right. And I'm glad we kind of got through that conversation and discussed kind of where those experiences lay. And I think you made the point a few minutes ago of like, this doesn't reach the pinnacle.
No.
Of where we've been and where we're going on this journey. And I look forward to having those conversations. But I did want to ask as a lighthearted note, and now that we both have kind of gotten through our high school
now that we've trauma dumped.
Do you have a favorite show that you did in high school?
Oh.
It's so many years ago for me and for you. So.
It would have to be Hairspray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Footloose, but my part wasn't one of the fun ones in Footloose. Hairspray, I got to have more fun, and Dakota and I were already dating at the time, so that was a fun aspect of it. Yeah, I would say Hairspray. How about you?
I honestly, I put a lot of stock into those shows that I did senior year. The James and the Giant Peach and Footloose year.
Yeah.
I feel like I discovered that year, I had that kind of like wake up call with How to Succeed of like, okay, maybe I need to be exploring what other options are out there.
Right.
And, when I got to that James and the Giant Peach and Footloose year, I was really starting to realize that, there really is an opportunity for everyone in theater and to really explore what feeds your soul and makes you feel, you're doing good and you're enjoying your time. And stage managing and directing, I realized that it's a really great opportunity to not only help tell a story, but to almost get to craft the story yourself and really present that information. And it's very rewarding and very moving to have that opportunity and to work with creative people and artistic people. And just theater just has that way of just really making you feel full and feel very satisfied. And I think that's why, people who do shows tend to do them and stick around with them.
Yeah, can't stop once you catch the bug.
Right, exactly. Because there's just something so fulfilling about it. And, we'll talk more about the development of the company, but that opportunity and like being able to have that again after having a little bit of a lull with it in college was like, okay, great. There is this opportunity out there, an option.
Yeah. So hopefully this helped give people context on how we were able to start this thing, what motivates us, and our past.
Yeah.
I know I've mentioned in passing to people, why did you start this? And I'm like, oh, well, my high school experience kind of like led me to start this, but we never have time to really get into it. So I hope this gives people the context that they were looking for. And like I said, this is just scratching the surface of some of the crazy things we've dealt with. So I'm really excited to break down each show and talk about all the drama, all the good things, the things we've learned, the mistakes we've made, because there's been a lot of those that we've made along the way, but it's gotten to us to a really good place now.
Yeah, there's plenty of stories to tell.
For sure.
Of conversations to have and plenty of shows to address. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to those conversations.
And interviews.
Oh,
We're going to have lots of
yes.
interviews with former cast members and crew members.
And company members that have come and gone over the years.
We've got to bring my parents on here.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, 100%.
What their life was like when I decided to start doing shows, because it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. And look forward to addressing all of those things. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, great chatting with you as always.
Absolutely. Same to you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for getting snarky with us. We'll see you later.
See you next time.